Okay, so we're online. Good evening, everyone. Assalamu alaikum. We're here to talk about the very famous, and I think a lot of people do talk about love and mohabbat and ish, but I think it's one of the least understood topics in terms of how love and relationships go hand in hand. And today we have Sharmeen Khan on board. She's a theta healer, she's a clinical psychologist, she's a therapist, and we have Saad Nazim with us, who's a writer and a digital strategist. So we're going to start off today's session by doing a small visualization activity, and Sharmeen is going to lead us through that. And from there, we're going to talk about what goes into creating a healthy relationship, what makes a relationship toxic, and yet in what are the tips and techniques that we can utilize in our daily life to have a healthy relationship. So Sharmeen, over to you, please.
Assalamu alaikum, everyone. Thank you for tuning in. Okay, so this is just going to be a really simple, brief exercise. I'd like everyone to close their eyes, get comfortable wherever you're sitting, and take a deep breath. Inhale through your nose and slowly exhale through your mouth. Let's just do one more after this, so that we just relax, get into the zone. And just take a minute and think about what your perfect partnership looks like. What the man or woman that you want to be with looks like. And not just how they look, also how they make you feel. And what attributes they have, what kind of lifestyle they have, where they work, how many children you want to have, where you want to live. Now let's think about you and what you bring to the table in that relationship. How you interact with them, how you communicate with your partner, how you get to know each other better, how you bond, and how you live your life. Just keep breathing, deep breaths, inhale through the nose, out through the mouth. Think of the fun that you have. Think of the fights that you have. Think of everything. Think of buying groceries together, and cooking, and all the boring stuff as well. Because that's holistic. A relationship has the good days, the bad days, the illness, the celebrations, all the big and small things. Now, whatever you're seeing, feeling, hearing, imagine all of that is in bubble. You, your partner. And let's just send it up to the light. It's a little manifestation exercise. And let's just ask the universe to give us that. If you're already married, let that be what we want our marriages to be. If we're in a relationship, let that be what we want our future to be. And if you're single, let that be what you want your future to be. Take a couple of minutes. Watch that bubble go up and just dissolve into this white light. Higher, lovely. And when you're ready, just take 2 deep breaths. Keep that feeling inside of you of the happiness that you just felt, the joy that came with the love that you experienced in this journey. And open your eyes.
We can open our eyes, right?
Yeah, I said open your eyes. Hi.
Okay, so
Yeah.
I didn't hear that. Okay, can you hear me? I'm just checking.
Yes, can you hear me?
Yes. That was such a peaceful activity. I was in my la la land and I was imagining the perfect partnership and the relationship. Would you like to deconstruct the activity for us a little bit before we move further?
So, I mean, I'm going to tie the activity into a lot of thoughts that we have, right? हमारी society के अंदर and दो तीन अलग नजरिए होते हैं. Is this English, Urdu? What language are we using?
Bilingual, like
Fun.
whatever. Yeah.
Okay, so so what happens is that these different perspectives we have. One is that okay, we're done with university, rishtas start coming in, right? And the benchmark that is set for us in the social aspect is okay, the guy has to be settled, and that word settled is such a loaded word in itself because it means that he has to have a job, preferably a rich family. It's a very monetary calculation of what a marriage should look like. Then there is that 6 feet tall, good looking, all of that, and which is the aesthetic calculation of a marriage. And then there is what is the family like? Are they liberal? Are they moderate? Are they religious? Because will they match our family values, right? And what happens is that people focus more on those things and on what the wedding should be like than what the partnership and what the rest of your life looks like. So the things that actually matter, the birth of a child, or maybe losing a job, or buying a new house, those things. No, I mean, I won't say nobody, but a lot of people just discount, right? So when you're thinking about your partner, you're thinking about how he makes you feel, or she, and how you make them feel, and all of that. So it's more, I mean, I won't say it's completely holistic because this was a 2-minute exercise, but it's a little teaser or tester into what it can be. So when you open yourself up to a new perspective in how a relationship can be perceived, what happens is that you're opening yourself up to the concept of, oh, shadi can be more than this, right? So you start attracting something better into your life, because if you didn't know that, for example, I'll give you a personal example. If you did not know Nutella is awesome, you would never try it, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
So just speaking about certain things sometimes helps a person open up to the fact that, hey, ye bhi to ho sakta hai. It's not just what I've seen my parents do or what I've been told is marriage or love or relationships.
Yeah. That's very interesting. And one of the reasons I was in favor of curating a talk on relationships and love. So I was doing a similar kind of activity. I was teaching a class and conducting a workshop, and the activity was about goal setting. So there was these undergrad students, and they were coming up with these fancy ideas, what they want about, what kind of elements they want to have in their future. And I remember distinctly, there were like these two students, male students, who drew a figure of their future life partner, and they were shamed in front of the entire class. And I was like, why not? Like, when you're planning your future life, you're putting everything there. कुछ लोगों ने fancy houses बनाए थे, कुछ लोगों ने अपनी companies बनाई थी. And I think it's very important to think what kind of life partner you want to have in your life. And so that's the idea that I was also trying to impart to my students as well. कि life partner, whatever kind of like relationship you want to have, friends को भी अगर आप देख रहे हो future के अंदर, so you need to have an idea what kind of friendship you want. So there's nothing wrong in thinking about relationships. In fact, that's something we should be preparing about. And you're very right कि हमारी society के अंदर हम relationship को बड़े 2-3 factors के ऊपर evaluate करते हैं. And then yet again, when you're not aware के relationship के nuances क्या होंगे, we're unable to navigate that landscape. And having said that, क्योंकि हम लोग relationships की बात कर रहे हैं, I think a huge component of relationships, yet again, romance and relationships को काफी लोग interchangeably use करते हैं. And Saad, I distinctly remember when we were talking about curating this talk, you used a particular statement जो कि मैंने event को advertise करते हुए use की थी, that one should be disloyal to the idea of romanticism. Can you help me understand what do you mean by that? Why should we be disloyal to the idea of romanticism if we want to have a healthy relationship?
Are you asking me or Saad?
I was asking Saad, and then we'll move to you, Sharmeen, about that.
Okay.
Saad, can you hear me?
Yes, I can now. Yes, there's a bit of a lag. So thank you, Amna, for having me again here, and Sharmeen as well, and everyone who's watching, and I hope everyone's keeping safe. Just coming back to the question again. So, romanticism, like if we get into it, we'd probably go back a century and we'd try to comprehend where it really stems from and where the movement started from. But let's not get into that. Let's just look at the ideas that romanticism does present us with. And the reason I think why we probably ought to be somewhat disloyal, if not entirely disloyal to those ideas. So whenever I think we love or we form relationships, there's a huge chunk of influence that we carry into our relationships because we've grown up with certain ideas. When in matters of heart, it's usually romanticism that has a massive influence, and how we assume that a lot that we read through novels, through movies, through books, will somehow, the fiction will manifest into our realities. And once it doesn't, that's where the dichotomy starts existing. A couple of ideas that romanticism does present us with. It doesn't talk about the daily errands that a couple would run, but it mostly talks about the beautiful weather that those two would be celebrating. One of the other ideas that romanticism has is that how one person can fill all the voids and gaps in our lives, right? They will come in as our therapists, our best friends. At times, we are kids and our poots at times, replacing even animals at times, and just being there for us in moments we would want them to be. I think that's a massive burden on anyone, let alone on any human, and then the one that you're seeing or partnering with. It also skips a lot of hoops when it comes to how is the relationship formed, how over a period of time the ideas of relationships, especially in our part of the world, have evolved into very narrow versions of how it would work. Apparently love probably will see us through every storm, which isn't always true, because we all understand that the practicalities come into play. So a couple of ideas like these that I think halt our progress within a relationship. We also assume through the lens of romanticism that the other person that we are with is somehow the epitome of perfection, and we found that one among hundreds and thousands of people that we've met around our life. We found that one particular person, and now this is it. The reality soon kicks in, and it sets our entire world in upheaval. At times, our own premises are upended completely, and I feel a lot of that has, in my personal experience, right, like while growing up, there was a massive influence on me with books and movies, especially. And I try to enact a lot of those things in my life, in my relationships as well. And when they wouldn't work out, I always assumed that there was something wrong with the relationship per se. And I did not realize until quite later in my life, and I think I'm still on a learning curve there, that those fictions and the realities that we exist in will have a friction that's going to be that's going to have a lot of conundrums that we'll be followed with.
So what I'm hearing is that the idea of romanticism is affected by what you see in movies, what you read in books. Is basically you're saying that we need to be disloyal to that idea because we're trying to live our relationship through somebody else's mind, through somebody else's thought process.
Yes, I mean it's end of the day, it's just not that. It's also the ideas perhaps are quite unrealistic for one person to be attaining those. A lot of our perceptions don't have to be the realities. A lot of things that we bring into our relationship, a lot of projection that happens during a relationship, of any sort, by the way, because we've gone through our own baggages or traumas have come along, and we kind of somehow, the exemption of one's own falters or fallibilities within oneself, because mostly romanticism is a proponent of the fact that I'm a huge follower of this channel called The School of Life, and one of the modern philosophers, Alain de Botton, is usually suggesting how when love is always at play, there's always tragedy awaiting to happen, and somewhere that is the redemption. The death at times is also glorified in majority of the novels or romantic movies. and somehow that is completely fulfilling the need of what love was, so a lot of people start assuming that, and then they aspire towards that. And at times, we don't want to work through the solutions because somehow we feel like that's where we're destined to be.
Mm-hmm. It's funny that you mentioned that. I remember when I was growing up, and perhaps Sharmeen, you can relate more to that with obviously your professional practice. कि हमारी जो adult life में behaviors हैं, they're greatly impacted by, as Saad mentioned, कि बचपन में हम जो ideas form कर रहे होते हैं. And I remember like I was addicted to cheesy romance novels, right? जहाँ पे बंदा जितना मर्जी flawed होगा, बंदी आती है, and उसके बाद सब बंदा बिल्कुल सही हो जाएगा, and he's going to understand how to love and how to be in a committed relationship. And I remember my sister using exactly those words, that you're addicted to cheesy romance novels because there's no reality in that. And then I think Pakistan ke andar they're also very, at least when I was growing up, we were heavily influenced by Shah Rukh Khan ki movies, and the kind of narratives that are putting forward, कि अच्छा बंदा ज़बरदस्ती आप मोहब्बत नहीं कर रहे हो, but you're going to keep on stalking that person, and ultimately the person has to fall in love with you because you're in love with that person. And that kind of like tainted our worldview about relationships. So what's your take on that? कि what creates the idea of love, and क्या हमें बाकी romanticism and love में differentiate करना चाहिए? And that, like, you could speak from your own personal experience and also as a therapist, whichever take you want to have.
So I agree with a lot that Saad just said, that we are influenced, like you said, by Shah Rukh Khan or by, Hollywood as well, or by Cinderella, whatever our worldview or our exposure has been. Mm-hmm. And that is what we want. We want a knight in shining armor to come and sweep us off our feet. And jab wo nahi milta, to then it's like sare mard aise hi hote hain. But mm-hmm. Which leads to another problem. But Saad said a lot just now, and there was just so much happening. That was beautiful, the way he summarized so many different concepts. But let's assume that, like you said, ladaiyan bhi hoti hain and wo sab kuch bhi hota hai. People view love more as a spectrum. So it's like ek side pe insane ishq hai, like you're stalking the person and like, nahi mujhe yahi chahiye. I know you say you don't love me, but I know you'll come around and all of that. And then there's the other perspective of, I hate you and I want to see your face again. I can't believe we live on the same planet. Yeah. Right? And there is this belief that a lot of people have कि जितना प्यार करते हैं उतना ही गुस्सा आता है. या जितना प्यार करते हैं उतना ही रोना आता है. Right? But that's because love is viewed on that scale. Mm-hmm. But love is just love. Love is a baseline. So just to give you an example, I know there are different categories of love, but for example purposes, we all have siblings or parents, right? Yeah. The baseline is that we love them, right? There's no doubt about that. We love our parents, we love our siblings. But there's certain days we can't stand their faces because we've had a fight. There's certain days we don't agree with their worldviews. There's certain days where they want us to do something. कि बेटा डॉक्टर बन जा, लॉयर बन जा, इंजीनियर बन जा, स्कोप अच्छा है. नहीं, मैंने आर्किटेक्ट बनना है. You know? But that doesn't mean we don't love them. So even in a partnership, when you're choosing a partner for yourself, you're choosing someone to love for the rest of your life. In that context, someone to make a part of your family that you did not grow up with. Yeah. So the love is the baseline, but the relationship is something that is built and created through interaction, through communication, respect, trust, and all of these factors that you can't. It cannot be a scale of acha, you don't agree with me, so you're not good for me, or it's love is a stabilizing factor. Does that make sense?
I'm trying to understand how would you like for a person who's not very, let's suppose, well versed with the idea of love. And as I said, currently your understanding of love that is impacted by how society makes us understand what love is. So काफी लोग love और relationship को भी hand in hand understand कर रहे होते. तो वो क्या defining factor is that's going to help us understand कि हाँ कि love अगर baseline है, grounding factor है. So how is like love different from relationship?
I'm thinking of this like really strange video I once saw online. Don't worry about that. But let's just assume that love is love is a cake. Okay.
Okay. Yeah.
So मगर उसके अंदर आटा भी जाता है, चीनी भी जाती है, फ्लेवरिंग भी जाती है, बहुत ज़्यादा चीज़ें जाती हैं, राइट? तो वो हुए कि वर्ल्ड व्यू मैच हो रहा है कि नहीं. Romance is a symptom or not even a symptom. It is a value addition that may or may not be in your relationship. But that is not all that your relationship is.
Yeah.
You know, जो हम चाहते हैं कि बस वो रात के बीच में हमारे घर के बाहर आके बूम बॉक्स लेके खड़ा हो जाए और आशिकी 2 के गाने लगाए, you know, that is a
Yeah.
symptom of the relationship. That is not the relationship itself.
Yeah.
And when we get stuck in those romantic ideologies of बस यही चाहिए मुझे, शाहरुख खान के लिए चला था, at the end of the movie they both died. I mean, that's great, but that's a story. Or how about how everyone gets married in a movie and they lived happily ever after, but
Yeah.
nobody explains what that is.
Yeah.
Love is also
Yeah.
chemicals, right? So
Yes.
the chemicals that are released in our body when we're in love make us feel beautiful, make us look beautiful. Our skin glows, our hair is healthier, our hormones are perfectly aligned. We feel like we're on drugs because it actually is a watered down version of how you would feel. Guys, do not try this at home, but how you would feel if you did heroin, right? So love is also addictive.
Yeah.
And that high lasts you about 4 years. So it's like a natural way of
Wow.
saying, okay, you guys love each other. So spend these 4 years getting to know each other and establish a relationship. Now, what we do is we spend those 4 years enjoying the buzz. And 4 years later, we're like, yeah, something went wrong here. You're not the person I was dating, or you're not the person I married. And that's why there is like statistically a spike in divorces between 4 to 6 years of marriage or relationships.
Yeah.
So it's also on building upon the baseline that is the आटा. You know, love सिर्फ आटा है, romance आटा है, communication आटा है, और ये सारी चीजें relationship का हिस्सा होते हैं.
So what he's saying is that there is no easy way to understand how to be in a healthy relationship. It has to be learned. It's a skill. That's what I'm hearing. The relationship with सीखना पड़ता है कि एक healthy relationship क्या हो, right?
हाँ, और हर एक की relationship की recipe थोड़ी सी different होती है.
Absolutely. So coming to that fact कि हर एक की recipe different होती है. Saad, although like this conversation is not gendered, but I also know कि हमारे ideas about love and relationship are heavily impacted by कि हमारी gender identity क्या है society के अंदर. So I'm just like curious कि like I know my perspective क्या as a female क्या हमारे nuances ideas क्या होते हैं. तो क्या the idea of love has it been different for you growing up? क्योंकि as Sharmeen said कि हर इंसान की recipe different होती है. How did you navigate and learn that being a male in a patriarchal society had a different impact on your idea of love?
Yeah, I mean, what Sharmeen said, a lot of those things were resonating. It was like I could relate to so many of things that were mentioned. One of the things that stood out was, and I feel like obviously this is all experiential learning. None of us have. I mean, I don't have a degree in love, or I have not read it very profoundly. But you know, when the movie ends, is the time when the movie should begin, because we kind of have seen them falling in love. We've seen them going through whatever they had to, and now they're together, and the movie ends. Sadly, we don't get to see what's going to happen. Maybe the directors are wise enough to know, okay, we shouldn't show what happens afterwards. मुझे लगता है कि I think over a period of time, मुझे initially my influences were, I mean, I've lived my life in Pakistan, so Shah Rukh Khan, Pakistani dramas were a massive influence on me. From I know what you mean by gender perspective. Absolutely, I think a lot of my ideas to me fed on my toxic masculinities, on the ideas of love, on how to treat my partner, and how to assume also that my partner will fall in love with me because, you know, I'm a man in a dominating patriarchal society, and eventually I'll keep trying. So वो जो borderline harassing के ऊपर चले जाते थे, but that's fine because that's what a man is supposed to do. He's supposed to chase. So gazelle and bull, you know, lion chasing, and that's what I was fed into. I think now when I look back, I look at Shah Rukh Khan's movies and they're filled with sexism, right? They're filled with things which probably horrify me at times. But there were times when I not only glorified them, but I found myself enacting those things. The idea of music was always very nice, adding that, it added an extra oomph to the whole thing. So वो बड़ा important होता था. But then I think as I sorry, you're about to say something?
No, please continue.
So as I evolved, I realized that a lot of my mantras were clearly failing or falling on their face, right? It wasn't working out. Or whenever it was, something new would show up. And I'd be like, they never taught us this in Hollywood ki movie or Bollywood ki movie. So what do I do now?
For that, Saad, I'm very curious. क्या चीज़ नहीं सिखाई Bollywood movie ने नारी, but curious to
काफी
that.
चीजें. I think one of the reasons was that one of the things that I've recently figured out, and it's good that we have a therapist on board, is that seeking help as a couple by going to a counselor.
Yeah.
This was something that was never taught, because aapne, just like as a man, I'm told to, like, I'm going to figure my shit out. I am going to wipe my tears off and I'm going to go forth and win the world. I've also been taught to do the same with my relationships. So relationship was never, or love has been something that also, I think, over a period of time, because we've also, humne fables bhi sune, he, Ranja, and all these stories, right? Beautiful, poetic, lovely. But then again, there needs to be someone giving a disclaimer, which we were never given. So the skill never came. We learn so many things. We learn how to use laptops, even our phones. We learn how to use even those small little apps, like how do they work? But we were never told, or rather we were told, that it's innate how to manage relationships and love, and we can navigate through because we've come with this innate quality, which isn't true. I think that's where counseling and therapies, personally and as a couple, as counselors, as couple, you reach out to counselors. I think that's something that that idea I was always divorced from, until I realized that it's so important to do all these things for relationship to work. Because as Sharmeen, I think rather poetically put it, that's the foundation. That's the recipe for the cake. But you don't have the cake yet. And also don't assume that perhaps you'll make the finest cake, because there would be days or times when you don't even have the recipes intact, right? You're going to miss out on so many things. And it might take you a couple of times over and over again to get that perfection in. So yeah, these things, I guess, just to try fitting in a box.
I think that one word that stood out for me yet again, Saad, from what you were saying, was that how learning to be in a relationship is also a skill. And I think especially हमारी society के अंदर, since we have a collectivist society, parents play a huge role in helping us understand कि healthy relationship क्या होना है. And Sharmeen, I'm going to direct this question towards you. And I'm sure कि in your experience as a therapist, you probably have seen how the patterns that you have in an adult life are basically traced back to the ideas that the kid had or the kid was exposed to as a child. So can you help us understand a little bit? Because I remember a friend say, and I'm sharing more experiences so that the audience can also understand. I remember I was having a conversation with one of my friends, and we were talking about this mutual friend, and he was a very good friend, but he was I'm sorry to say, the worst partner possible. Like we could see कि यार कि अपनी बीवी के साथ सही नहीं है. But as a friend, that person was very nice. He was very empathetic. He would extend a listening ear. And तो मैं अपनी दोस्त से भी कह रही थी, and I think कि मेरी भी understanding बहुत enhance हुई है, like hats off to my therapist as well, because I could not understand a lot of my own patterns. And I remember कि जब मैं, and I think independent counseling, independent safe space होना बहुत ज़रूरी है किसी भी चीज़ को deconstruct करने के लिए. And sometimes friends are limited in that. Sometimes people we know have limitations, they can't help us understand. So coming back to that story जो friend की है, तो मैं उसको बताई थी, मैंने कहा यार, from what I see, that person as a kid, he was sent to the hostel, and hostel के अंदर वो all boys hostel के अंदर grow up किया है from an age of prep. वहाँ से जब वो निकला है, he went to the armed forces, and yet again घर के अंदर भी healthy माहौल नहीं है parents के अंदर. So how would that person know कि healthy relationship क्या? हम common sense हम बहुत सी चीज़ों में use करते हैं, but जहाँ हमें हर daily life में, professional life में role models और mentors की ज़रूरत होती है, I feel like that person, as a kid, he was never exposed to what goes into a healthy relationship. So coming back to my question, कि एक healthy relationship चलाने में as an adult, parenting styles कितना important role play करते हैं?
It's very important. So the way I just want to start with what Saad said, and then I will build on the story. उसने जिस तरह कहा था ना that the cake might not always be perfect, and it's a skill.
Yeah.
So just say, when we're born, we don't even know there's breakfast, lunch, and dinner time. Those
Yeah.
are also skills that are taught to us. If we eat dal roti our entire life, we won't know that biryani or steaks or anything else exists. I think I'm hungry.
So am I, yeah. The biryani got me there, yeah.
Yeah, so the point I'm trying to make is that unless you have that exposure, exactly like you said, it's not going to happen. So this your friend, for example, right, he goes to an all boys school, and there are a lot of other factors in this example, but he sees his parents maybe fighting or sleeping in separate bedrooms or stuff like that. So for him, maybe it's normal to sleep in separate bedrooms or disrespect a woman or a woman's places in the kitchen, because that is what he has seen. There's nothing
Yeah.
wrong with being in a kitchen, but maybe the way she was ordered or commanded or expected was disrespectful, right? Then there is one more thing that Saad said. He spoke about toxic masculinity.
Yeah.
Another concept that we don't discuss very often is toxic femininity. You know,
Yeah.
tane and nagging, because that is also a form of emotional abuse, and that is also very abrasive, not just to the relationship but to the children who see it. You know, mothers who sit and they're like, "Tum pata hai tumhare abbu ne kya kiya?"
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
because whatever relationship between two people is, no matter what generation we're speaking about, it is between two people. And not respecting that relationship in that way impacts everyone involved. Like if you hear about your friends' relationships, it does
Yeah.
impact you, because you'll always take your friend's side and be like, okay, your partner is not a nice person, and then they'll make up tomorrow, and but you still have that bias in your head, right? And that impacts our primary relationship, so we don't get to experience love unconditionally. Right? Like let's say your friend used to come home over the summers and hear itne paise deke tumhe itne achhe school mein bheja hai and tum grades bhi nahi laate. And this
Yeah.
is all of, like, I'm making this stuff up. I'm sure your friend did not go through it. But you know, then that becomes, okay, love is transactional. They're paying for me, so I have to love them. So love is an obligation, and love is a guilt. Okay, if I feel angry, then I feel guilty for being angry because they love me, because they're educating me, they're clothing me. And then you go to these schools, and that's a completely different ballgame altogether, because there's most of these schools, and I won't say all, do have an element of corporal punishment, especially the all boys ones. And आपको मारे भी पड़ रही हैं, and then आपको ताने भी पड़ रहे हैं कि किस टाइप के खानदान से आए हो, तुम्हारे माँ बाप को पता होगा तुमने ये बदतमीजी की, and बच्चे like करते हैं, kids are kids, right? And ये सब कुछ हो रहा है, so that also impacts, okay, I am unloved, I got sent away from home, and over here I'm being told that I'm a bad person, which is probably why I was sent away. So already that child is withdrawing into himself before even finding himself. And then he goes to the army, and there's well, even before the army, the kid has a day where he's missing his mother, or where he was punished, and he starts crying. And he's told कि लड़के रोते नहीं, मर्द को दर्द नहीं होता. So that all of these walls are being created for that child, and those walls are becoming barriers to loving in a healthy way, or being vulnerable, because vulnerability is actually a strength, and it's a very important part of love. But we take vulnerability to be a weakness. Okay, no, this person doesn't get to know my inner self, because they will hurt me or take advantage of me. And then that just builds over the years, and army mate, so there's no space for vulnerability, at least in your initial training years. So does that answer your question?
Yeah, it does. Interestingly, one thing that I did want to talk about in today's session is to address the idea. You talked about toxic masculinity. आप लोगों ने touch किया about toxic femininity. A toxic relationship, like as a whole, what are the signs of being in a toxic relationship? And Saad, we're going to start from you, and then we're going to shift towards Sharmeen. And before I touch the idea of toxic relationship, Sharmeen कह रही थी कि like vulnerable होना ज़रूरी है. At the same time, I think it's important for us to filter ourselves from our partners as well. What is your take on that? कि हम 100% जो है, like क्योंकि हर कोई कहता है be honest. It's okay to be vulnerable, but yet again, is it also important to filter ourselves for our partners? Does that make sense? Like my question that I'm trying to ask.
Yeah, have you directed that to me?
Yes, yes.
Okay, yeah. Um, so I'm going to little juxtapose the parenting style with this, because
Yeah.
while Sharmeen was mentioning, I think again, I could relate to the ideas of how,
Mhm.
like the parenting styles have affected, like in my own experiential journey so far,
Mhm.
have had a massive influence. Because
Mhm.
I mean, just I think this mashra mein hum rehte hain, the society that we live in, the part of the
Yeah.
world that we live in, parents have a very predominant say in our
Yeah.
relationships, be-
Mhm.
prior to the relationship beginning, and during, and once it ends. So parents they've been having a very overarching powers on relationships.
Mhm.
um at Not saying always it's a negative thing, but it has an influence on it. I mean, Abhi will mention anything about toxic femininity. That it was interesting because I haven't heard that term very often these days, and just to recalling it, I was like, yes, that's actually also true.
Mhm.
Because a lot of girls in various ways have
Mhm.
been either told to be subjugated to their partners, or to find means to work along that, what
Mhm.
they've been facing with. And
Mhm.
somewhere that influence brings us to a point where we're playing our parents out in our relationship. And
Mhm.
whatever the parents have revealed during our upbringing, a lot of things that they've hidden from us, they haven't been very transparent. We try to
Mhm.
play out also the good parts in it, or
Yeah.
probably the worst parts that they've shown to us. So I think
Mhm.
to be very consciously aware that your
Mhm.
parents, as much as you love them, care for them, at the end of the day, are people in a
Mhm.
society. So they have to be independent of your own entity, of your own relationship.
Mhm.
हमारे तो खैर influence भी बहुत ज़्यादा होता है ना, especially for girls, I'm assuming, because there's a very forced embedding of a concept of what
Yeah.
the marriage means for a woman. Even for a
Somewhere
guy. I mean,
you have to be sabir.
Saber, the stability
Yeah.
that I've been told by
Yeah.
so many of my own friends, like, stable ka bol rahe ho. And I'm like, what do you mean? I'm not falling off the chair right now, am I? And like, no, no, no. It's not that. It's jab tum stable ho. I'm like, okay, I can earn. I'm paying my bills. No, no, stable jab hoge, when someone's gonna walk into your life, they're gonna be there and they're gonna make everything okay. And I'm like, well, the bills are being paid. I'm still subscribed to Netflix. That's all right. I can binge through the seasons.
Mhm.
Coming back to your second question that you were asking, मुझे
Mhm.
थोड़ा सा
कि वो
वो
हमें
was specific.
फिल्टर करना जरूरी है कि जैसे हम अनकंडीशनल लव की बात करते हैं एंड आई नो कि लाइक she obviously has a more informed opinion and response on that, but just to like help the audience understand कि क्या unconditional love कि जो हम parents से सीखे, obviously that has to be different from the love that we expose ourselves to in the intimate relationships, but अपने आप को filter करना कितना जरूरी है,
So
vulnerability तो
so yeah. So this channel again, I'm going to mention this philosopher because I religiously follow him. He's someone that I'm going to cite. So Alan mentions that how everyone is trouble, and the only people that are normal are the people that you don't know yet. So the closer you get, the
yeah.
closer their vulnerabilities come out. You will see that they get agitated on the fact that तुमने glass इस तरह रखा है, इस तरह क्यों नहीं रखा, या
Yeah.
bathroom में towel wet है, या small little
Yeah.
picadillos, small little oddities that will have a whole argument in
Yeah.
place
Yeah.
for days, for weeks. Um,
Mhm.
so it depends how aware you are of your own self. And I think also when I'm saying when you're aware of yourself, it doesn't happen like you don't wake up one day and you're completely aware of yourself. I think we again all need to address the mental health issues, and we need to reach out to therapists and counselors to understand what's going on with us. I think
Mhm.
yes, just like everything that we censor when we go out walk, we don't say things that are in our minds, because our minds are also a lot of hormones firing in there, a lot of neurons just firing, a lot of thoughts, and a
Mhm.
couple of those thoughts are really genuinely scary that should be kept with you, in boxes that you should only share with your therapist. Your partner is not equipped to deal with you, and that should be very important for you to know. That's why I feel हमें route करना चाहिए relationships को, because I've personally felt it, and I've been more happy when I've been able to route my relationships के your relationship की problems है वो relationship तक रहें, जो बाकी problems है then you need to seek out channels to find mitigation for that, to find help for that. A
Yeah.
lot
Yeah.
of times my own personal problems seep into the relationship, and then So censoring is important, not to a point of being disloyal or being dishonest, or I'm not again advocating for something like that. I'm saying transparency is the very epitome. It's the important cornerstone for it. But at the same time, things that you know that you probably
Saad, I lost you there for a minute. Sorry.
acting out childhood,
We can hear you now. Yes.
Yeah. So that's what I said. I think I lost the connection there, but yeah.
Okay.
I don't know how far did you hear me?
Last sentence, I guess.
Yeah, that's fine. Yeah, let's Sharmeen take over from that.
Okay. So
do
Sharmeen,
you want to finish what you were saying?
No, I'm good.
Okay. Sharmeen, coming back to, since we're talking about toxic relationships, or at least हमें समझ आ रही है, and I'm trying to understand this better myself as well, कि अपने आप को बहुत भी transparent करने से भी क्या relationship toxic हो सकता है? Like, so what's your idea on कि why should we filter ourselves?
सबसे पहली चीज तो ये है that a lot of people think कि अच्छा 20, 22, 25, 30 जिस भी उम्र में मुझे ये partner मिला है या मिली है, तो not having filters also means to tell them every minute detail about your life. But that's not necessary. You had a life before you met them and you have a life with them, but there's again going to be 8 to 10 hours of the day that you're not together, like in a normal average relationship, right? So it comes down to where Saad started off, that often we look for partners that will fill all of our voids and self-awareness, because nobody was created to complete you in whatever worldview you believe in. Self-awareness, the one person that you spend the most amount of time with from the day you're born to the day you die is yourself. And if you aren't aware of what makes you tick, it is presumptuous to assume that your partner should know that. And that's toxic, right? कि तुम्हें तो पता है कि 6 बजे के बाद मेरे सर में दर्द होता है, for example. नहीं, उसे क्यों पता होगा, right? So,
that's something I can relate to.
Yes. I apologize.
No, that's important because I could relate to that. Yes, that's it's usually caffeine
so those
helps
are
there.
assumptions. That तुम्हें पता है कि मैं X kind of family से हूँ, तो मुझे तो चीजें इसी तरह चाहिए, right? मुझे नहीं पता. So toxicity comes in a lot of shapes and forms, and I think like the two things over here are also that हमारी जो ज़बान है, ठीक है? I think over the years, and like I say, partition has a lot to do with this. We have a very sarcastic tongue. So to some extent, that toxicity that we speak of, it comes in different ways for different people. So for men, it may come in violence more than in speaking, or in paranoia. There are a lot of men who don't allow their women to do anything because they feel कि वो भाग जाएगी किसी और के साथ. But for women, there's a lot of sarcasm and just whittling down a man's self-esteem with these comments that can be read, because if someone knows you, and that's vulnerability as well, right? If you're vulnerable and open and you tell someone something that is very close to you, and that is used against you in a fight, that's toxic, and that's hurtful, and that is just not cool. So you don't need to tell a partner everything. Like you don't need to tell them कि 6th grade में एक लड़का मेरे साथ कुर्सी पे बैठा था और मुझे 3 दिन के लिए पसंद था, then teacher ने change कर दी, nobody cares. But the point is that if it's important to you, and if it's important to your present, and if you think it will be important to your future, then that information should be shared.
I think that's also
in a respectful manner. I'm sorry, just one more thing. Respect is very important. And if there's a baseline for relationships, it's respect, trust, and faith, right? But you take a relationship forward to make sure that there is a sustainable future in it. Communication.
And I think communication, yet again, the low communication is both an art and science. I don't think so they're underselling that, because one of the hardest things is knowing how to communicate.
Can you repeat that, please?
I'm just saying, when people say that communication is both an art and science, I think they're not underselling it, because लगता बहुत आसान है, कि communicate, but yet again we don't know. जब tempers high हैं, दोनों लोग गुस्से हैं, कैसे communicate करें, you know? And one thing I wanted to touch upon, and I'm going to throw that question to both of you. क्योंकि हम लोग बात कर रहे हैं कि how certain partners can manipulate the narrative, कि अगर आपने उनसे कोई चीज़ share की है, it's important कि आप अपनी story को own भी करें, like, and I think that's something I learned along the way, कि मेरी history is my history, and I should choose whether I need to share that with my partner or not. But at the same time, हाँ अगर कोई ऐसी चीज़ है which I feel like can affect the relationship, if I'm unhappy with something, rather than assuming that the other person is going to understand, explain it to the person, you know, okay, what you're feeling, context important है. But जहाँ manipulation की बात आती है, and obviously that's a full-fledged topic itself, but I want you to touch a little bit upon कि emotional abuse क्या है, because हमारी society में a lot of people do understand violence when it is physical, but they don't understand कि emotionally abusive relationship कैसे हो सकता है. And a lot of people choose to walk out of relationships because they feel it's emotionally abusive. So if anyone can start answering that question. Sharmeen, would you like to take that question first? Emotionally abusive relationship क्या होता है?
मैं आपको 2-3 मिसालें दे देती हूँ. इमोशनल अब्यूज जो सास से हो सकता है वो है कि शादी को 10 साल हो गए अभी तक सास इज लाइक हाँ शादी तो कर ली मेरे बेटे से जहेज नहीं या जहेज काफी नहीं था राइट या ऐसे जो पॉइंट्स होते हैं कि अपने बच्चों का ख्याल तो वो रख नहीं सकती और मेरे बेटे का क्या ख्याल रखेगी. And the wife maybe is spending 15 hours of the day taking care of the kids and the husband, which is why she doesn't have time to take a shower, you know. So just belittling her to the point that, you know, nothing she can do is right. And in a relationship that would be for example a man just blowing up because the woman did not put sugar in her tea, in his tea. Right. So over or under reacting to certain things, not or like I know certain families where maybe the woman is more educated than the man, and the families aren't happy, like they don't tell anyone, as in you know they'll be like हाँ मेरा बेटा अमेरिका का पढ़ा है बेटी भी अमेरिका की पढ़ी हुई है the daughter-in-law बताएंगे नहीं because that is just, you know, that is also emotional abuse. Or if a woman, like a man comes home, you know, guy's been out working 10-12 hours and the woman just starts off with kabhi apne joote se ek jagah rakh. I mean he also needs that space, right? Because if a relationship is not your entire life. There is that personal space that a person needs to unwind and all of that, and if they're not getting that, and it's like bachon ki fees due hai tum kabhi sunte nahi ho da 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 da, you know. So starting off with that is emotional abuse. Or just you know the guy says I don't know my boss was really hard on me today, and say yeah that's nice mami tomato lana bhul gaya.
So what I'm hearing is like emotional feelings for space to like feel emotionally safe. That would also be So what's your
something? I'm sorry, just one thing. Something as small as I broke my nail.
Sorry,
Or I broke my nail or I got a bad haircut. Maybe that is something that's very important to me. And if and I'm telling my partner, and maybe my partner doesn't see it that way, and it's like, yeah, whatever, you know, I lost $10,000 on the stock exchange today. Both their problems are valid, and both their problems should be given the equal safety to be discussed.
Saad, what's your take on what makes a relationship emotionally abusive? So जो मैं शमीन की बात सुन रही हूँ, like एक तो making that space, that partnership emotionally safe for both partners, and at the same time not invalidating somebody else's pain or experience, just because you're not feeling and experiencing it the same way does not kind of invalidate what the other person is going through. So what's your take on कि relationship को क्या चीज़ें emotionally abusive बना सकती है, or what categorizes as an emotionally abusive relationship?
Okay, so that's the question that you direct to the therapist, because she's probably the most well-versed to answer that. But I think in my own just personal experience, things, I think what I'm going to again pick up from what Sharmeen said here, like things that can trigger the other person and make them act in a way that they're not supposed to, and then holding that against them. I also feel like a lot of times we say things without auditing. Self-auditing is also important, knowing what you're saying. A lot of times, because we're also nowhere sane people as we assume ourselves to be. We tend to be equally filled with malice. At times we put a comment through to get that response, and when we get that reciprocity of that response, we are quick to blame. I think a lot of times it's small little things. I mean, because usually friends around and families around, I've seen the arguments are very small, but then they can combust and go out of proportion, and then that's where everything goes downward. I think even at something agar aap itne cognizant ho that just walking and putting the shoes there and small little things, if you can avoid these small little arguments, perhaps nothing would lead. I also feel like emotional abuse is a massive topic in itself, because a lot of times when I think obviously predominantly men do it more here than women do, but it could I think what I feel what it can do. I'd rather talk about what it can do. It can strip someone of their identity, of their self-confidence, of who they want to be or who they aspire to be. Because emotional abuse is like a process in itself. It carries on to a point where it becomes an abuse and the victim doesn't even realize it. So again, I can't stress. Yeah, sorry, go on.
Sometimes even the abuser doesn't realize that they're abusive.
Yeah.
I just wanted to add that. Please continue.
And that's so true. Yeah.
No, that's very true, especially in because dekho hamare paas na, I mean, sadly, and I say that with obviously the lot of pain, saying that our role models, our fathers, horrible role models, to be very honest. They show us the sides of dominating a conversation, of being aggressive, of riling it up, and not all of us end up in stock exchange, right? We're not always selling our stocks, and it's not Wolf of Wall Street every day in our lives. But I think hame wo jo narrative set kar diya jata hai, we imbibe that archetype, we imbibe that persona, and whether we like it or not, exactly, we're not even aware, we're completely oblivious that we're doing what we're not supposed to, but we carry on doing it. And the abuser, and again, I think that, and then obviously, I think unless you're not seeing a professional, हमारे यहाँ ये भी तो एक idea ना of reaching out to रिश्तेदार, and they have their own theories that put into it, and then it's a whole messed up cake, as the analogy goes. So it's important to know if something's wrong, reach out to a professional perhaps, and see where you are going wrong, and because at times I also feel like conversations don't tend to really come through at times.
It's 7 o'clock.
Maybe, someone needs to be there to address both the parties, a non-partisan kind of a situation.
So one more thing is, again, because of our upbringing, sometimes we don't know the difference between good and bad attention. Attention is just attention. So what could be that toxic behavior in a relationship could just be someone trying to get attention. So maybe screaming and shouting, like for example, nagging, right? Be it a man or a woman, nagging could just be, why are you not listening to me? And also recognizing that and just sitting down and saying, okay, so what is it that you actually want to say? Might have. And sometimes because that is the tone that has been set at home, a positive tone is something that is alien to them. So it may be perceived as sarcasm or malice or whatever. So there, like Saad said, it's a really big topic, but I think that helps with what was left over.
Yeah. So we're going to navigate towards, since we're also short of time, I want to touch upon, we've talked a lot about what goes into creating the idea of love, or toxic relationships, kaise jo hai, wo logo ke samne aate hain. Sharmeen, you mentioned one term when we were discussing this and curating this talk about one way to navigate a healthy relationship is to understand your non-negotiables. And that's something I want to talk about because I feel like that can also be a very strong takeaway for a lot of people in the audience. Okay, so non-negotiables kya hai relationship mein? How can having an understanding of that help you find and develop a healthy relationship?
So non-negotiables, again, har couple ke liye different hota hai, but they're generally things that often kya hota hai that a person is very far into a relationship or very far into a marriage, and then like, wait, this is a part of your reality, and why didn't you tell me before? And the other person is like, because you never asked. Let's
Yeah.
say drinking. I mean, we live in Pakistan, so I'm going to give Pakistan examples. Drinking or doing drugs might be something that not everyone is open to. But was it ever stated that this is something I'm not open to, or I want to have children, I don't want to have children, I want to have 15 children, I want to have one, you know,
Yeah.
or I would want that, you know, एक ही शादी हो। निकाहनामा पे एक खाली पेज होता है जिसके अंदर आप कुछ भी लिख सकते हैं। आप लिख सकते हैं कि मेरे घर में पता नहीं 8 फुट का फ्रिज हो, and then like that it's a contract, so that contract has to be fulfilled. If you write that mujhe like until I'm alive you cannot remarry, then that is part of the contract. So I would recommend that couples take time and sit down and list their personal non-negotiables, that I want at least 30 minutes to myself every day, despite having 15 children and a spouse and, you know, maybe a sick mother in the house. You know, I want those 15 minutes or that 30 minutes, which is me time, which is exclusive of a shower or sleep or whatever. And I would appreciate if my partner supports me in that.
Yeah.
You know, because that's also a partnership. Not saying, well, we have this to deal with the situation, but making that space so that a person can explore themselves as well.
Yeah. I yet again, क्योंकि better examples इसलिए ज़्यादा दे रही हूँ because I feel it puts a lot of things in context. So one of my friends reached out to me and she's trying to understand which proposal to say okay to. And I think in our society में there's like a, you know, that's a big thing. कि अच्छा जी आपके पास proposals आ रहे हैं. How do you understand? Parents कुछ कह रहे हैं, आप कुछ कह रहे हो. And that's a tip. Yet again, my therapist helped me to understand कि write it down, you know, कि तुम्हारे non-negotiables क्या है, in order to understand. And that's yet again जो आप बात कर रही हैं. So मुझे उसी ज़हन में आया कि she made me create a list. Number one, you know, okay, fine, if you want a partner, and that goes back to the activity that we started in the beginning. Okay, what do you want in a partner? उसमें से कौन सी चीजें हैं कि अगर नहीं भी मिले तो like you're fine with it, but कौन सी चीजें जो absolutely want in a relationship, right? And made it to top of the list. I was like, you know, emotional safety. So I can I can kind of navigate कि हाँ, I don't want somebody जो कि financially मेरे take care कर. I've never wanted that. Like I'm okay with जहाँ पे आपकी 50-50 हो. We can talk about how the finances have to be modeled, but emotional safety is something that I'm not willing to compromise on. And so I think काफी चीजें हमारे perspective में आ जाती हैं. And to my friend, I was like, you know, I'm going to give you a tip that my therapist did. Create a list and write it down. Okay, what are the, let's suppose, 5 non-negotiable elements for you, because that will help you to navigate your proposals better. And having said that, Saad, do you have any tips and techniques of, you know, a healthy relationship mein kya hona chahiye, or would you like sharing your own non-negotiables for a relationship? Because we're moving towards the end of the talk, and I want the audience to walk away with some practical tips and techniques and tools that we perhaps have learned over a period of time.
That's something that you asked Sharmeen, right?
Sorry?
Because I keep missing, like, did you ask Sharmeen that question?
हाँ, शमीन से हम non-negotiable की बात कर रहे थे, and I said कि that's one of the ways कि हम लोग ये determine कर सकते हैं अच्छा हमें relationship में क्या चाहिए. And I'm like, do you have anything for the audience in your own experience and obviously throughout your life, आपके लिए क्या चीजें work out की हैं that help to create a better or healthy relationship?
I think I let Sharmeen handle the non-negotiable parts, because I think she's being far better at articulating that thought. I think I want to talk something similar on that, is that, you know, it's okay also for the relationships to, and it might come across very pessimistic, but it's okay for relationships to also end, and that's okay. A lot of things that we do in life, they don't work out, and we retire, or we let them be, and we're like, no, we'll pursue something else. I think wo jo ek stigma hai na, of never ending, especially when it's formalized. And again, I'm not advocating for it, but I'm also not against it. That if two people can't make it work, there shouldn't be any onus on them to live with one another because some form of social contract has taken place. So I think there are at times when things aren't okay, it's also when we talk about non-negotiables, I think it's also okay to walk away and retire and not really hold the other person in animosity, but be
Yeah.
like, maybe this wasn't working out, and it's okay to take a step back and see if it's not working out, part ways, and go out and figure the world out, just like we do in so many other things. I think, और मुझे एक बात शर्मीन की, like I completely love how she's very subtly said it, that how every relationship is very subjective experience. So ये जो हम लोग का होता है ना, we find like, oh, your relationship and my relationship are so synonymous because we found one thing which is common. Not true, because 80% or 90% of the time you both are experiencing different things, and just because somewhere something has connected doesn't mean like it's entirely like the entire country going through a similar relationship. So I think that's also important. COVID ke times especially, everyone's realizing how subjective the relationships is, because a lot of people who thought that relationship is just right on the money, perfect, now living together is like hell, and you're like, how do you survive with one another? So I think wo very interesting cheez hai, that you kind of, everyone who's watching or everyone who's including myself, that I felt like, yes, every relationship, every person, it's a subjective experience. It cannot be by and large considered ki, haan, this is like the perfect framework and I'm going to go through. So that's my kind of like snippet.
Sharmeen, what's your take on that? And we're going to close the talk with this last question. Ki kya, is it okay कि अगर relationship का आपका workout नहीं कर रहा, so we should be equally okay with the idea of ending a relationship?
I liked what Saad said because it's very practical. So just one thing that was coming to mind while he was speaking is that I spoke about unconditional love. And it's important because it's a baseline concept, again, that when we're born, we're like the most dependent on someone else, right? So, and even as a parent, what happens is that our child can come home after doing drugs, after doing a gadi ka accident ho gaya, and we forgive them, right? That love is unconditional. Now, a partnership is someone that you choose to spend the rest of your adult life with. So that love does not necessarily need to be unconditional, which is why that conditionality comes in. Okay, I will be with you if my non-negotiables are fulfilled. And in that, if they're not being fulfilled, it's also about if self-love is the most important love, and that is not being fulfilled, or the environment is not such that you cannot respect yourself in it, walk away. Because sometimes the confusion हो जाती है कि हम वही unconditional love अपने spouse को भी देते हैं, and उसके अंदर हम अपने आप को जब वो attention नहीं दे रहे होते, that's where mental health complications start from. कि अब बस है, अब निभानी है. And that's not healthy for you, it's not healthy for your spouse. It's years and years of resentment that pile up. It can lead to a lot of health issues like cancer and other things. So it's also about respecting yourself and understanding that to love a child or a sibling unconditionally is okay. To love a spouse, because that's the most intimate relationship you will have in your life. It's okay to also see how you feel about it. So keep reassessing that. Where am I in this relationship? How do I feel? How much have I grown? How much have they grown? You know, those questions are important.
Sharmeen, एक और चीज, let's suppose कि if you do audit a relationship, and I'm going to use the word audit because it's important to check in कि आपका relationship कहाँ पे जा रहा है. I think कि जहाँ पे it's okay to be, कि it's kind of okay to understand that a relationship can end if it's not working out. I think एक और चीज भी that we should be aware कि if there's something wrong, तो उसके अंदर भी there are chances, कि we can kind of, I hate using the word fix, but yeah, we can kind of sit down and talk and work it out. कि ज़रूरी नहीं कि if something is not working out, तो उसके दो ही options हैं, कि हाँ हम रहेंगे या हम छोड़ देंगे. So perhaps we need to also navigate that. कि if something is not working out, या अगर दूसरा बंदा वैसा नहीं निकला जैसा आप चाह रहे थे, so वो middle ground कैसे हम ढूंढेंगे? How do we make that work? कि ज़रूरी नहीं कि कोई चीज़ गलत है तो, and I'm not talking about कि हाँ, I'm not talking about violence, I'm not talking about relationship that's abusive, but let's suppose कि कोई चीज़ हम कह रहे हैं कि like I'm a fun loving person, दूसरा बंदा मेरी lifestyle के साथ align नहीं कर पा रहा, should I in that relationship? So उसको middle ground को कैसे हम लोग निकालते हैं?
So another thing is that sorry, I lost my chain of thought. Yeah, so another non-negotiable some people have is that divorce is a non-negotiable. right? And everything is workoutable. I know that's not a word, but it is. So I would just like to leave with this one exercise that I give some of my clients that actually is, it helps. We don't stop growing when we get married. It's not like, acha, aaj ke baad for the rest of my life, this is who I am. You know, we grow for our entire lives and we experience things, and we don't always experience them with our partners. So if we can take 20 minutes, you can set an alarm, right? Take 20 minutes. It can be longer, shorter, whatever. At least 5 times a week, where you sit down with your partner and Beshak, if you're dating your partner before you get married, या मंगनी हुई, या you take the first 6 months of your relationship to get to know each other, एक होता है कि plans बन रहे होते हैं कि हम यहाँ जाएंगे, ये करेंगे, बेशक करें ना करें, you know, there's a lot of futuristic conversation, there's a lot of this is what I think, these are my concepts, not my दूध नहीं लाई टमाटर नहीं लाई, right? And as life progresses, we get stuck in those दूध नहीं लाई टमाटर नहीं लाई. So in those 20 minutes, just like spend the day or like some part of the day thinking, what do I want to talk about today? And maybe like, let's say you and I are doing that 20 minutes exercise. So let's say you start, and for 5 minutes, you pick a topic, which could be anything, could be global warming, it could be just romantic, kuchi-koo, or anything at all that you feel that you want to spend 5 minutes talking about. And while you are speaking, I will listen. Right? As your partner, I will give you the respect of listening. And if there's something that I have to say, I will write it down. Then in the second 5 minutes, I can respond to you. I can ask you questions. It can be a discussion. It can be open forum, or I can just spend 5 minutes in a monologue. Then this, the second segment of that, the second 10 minutes, either I choose a topic and we do the same thing, or we continue the topic that you chose for that day. So what's happening is it's an in-depth discussion about something that maybe I don't even know about, but is very important to you. Maybe you like quantum physics and I don't even know how to spell it, right? So it opens up a different dimension to that relationship, and it allows us to grow at the same pace. Because बाकी दिन हम बातें कर रहे होते हैं कि यार जियो लगा दो, क्या ARY क्यों चल रहा है, but that's not conversation. And having that 20 minutes of like jar conversation just really helps.
And that's why I feel like having a good therapist is so important, because I, for the life of me, would not be able to come up with that technique कि हम लोग कैसे चीज को navigate कर सकते हैं. But yeah, that was a very useful tip, Sharmeen. Thank you so much for that. And before we end this session for today, I know we're above and beyond the time limit. Any parting things that you have to say, Sharmeen and Saad, both of you?
Oh no, before that, I think some people, sorry, I'm cutting Sharmeen off here. Some people want to ask questions, so I've just asked them to post it on the page. So as soon as the questions come, we'll do that as well.
Okay.
Okay. And meanwhile, sorry, you were just parting notes. That's what you said. So I'll let Sharmeen handle that one.
No, all I was saying is I'm done with my parting note. That 20-minute exercise, that's good. It's Saad's turn.
Okay, I'm just going to take a look at questions and let's see if there's something that we can address in this time limit. Okay, we have a lot of praise. That's good. They love the analogy, Sharmeen, regarding the cake. Let's just take 30 seconds and see if we have any more questions.
A lot of people will be baking after this talk, by the way, Sharmeen. A lot of people are in their kitchens, so thank you. I'm going to be doing that too.
Oh man, it's after 7. It's not like you can even go to a bakery anymore. Thank you, lockdown.
Yes. Oh yes. Oh Jesus. Yes. Yes.
There's one comment. It's not a question, but there's this one comment by one of the participants. Okay, perhaps one way to navigate a healthy relationship is to have less expectations and less demands, and leave a lot of room for imperfections that we all have in us. So would someone like to address that? Ki kam expectations rakhe, bhi kam demands rakhe, and leave margin for error. Just few comments.
अपने आप से भी तो expectations नहीं रखते ना. जैसे as in to have a healthy relationship with even yourself, right? One is we push ourselves, but that is also a form of self-abuse, right? तो आप अपने आप से भी expectations जब रखते हैं, instead of expectations, the word goals is better, right? So even for a relationship, maybe you can have relationship goals that this is where I see myself in 1 year, 5 years, 10 years, 6 months, whatever. Expectations, demands, alfaz hi loaded in. So when you walk in with a word, it does create, that pressure on the relationship in itself. Again, it comes from nobody completes you. You're already complete.
So we have another question, that how do you balance the idea of unconditional love with the idea of toxicity? Like, if the idea of an ideal love is that you love a person no matter what and stick through thick and thin, then how do you know that it is toxic, and even in unconditional love, it needs to stop? Sharmeen, do you want me to repeat that question, or?
No, I got it.
Okay.
That's a really good question. That's a really good question. Now, the thing is that I think we spent enough time explaining unconditional love, or love itself. If you and if love is actually that beautiful for you and your partner, then just going and speaking and saying, okay, that was toxic for me, is something they would be open to listening to. And it's, there's a concept that I recently came across. There are two ways to handle that as well. One is you hurt me, right? So that is putting a blame somewhere, and that blame can hurt the person in front of you as well. You hurt me when you called me whatever, right? But the other is that you say the same thing, but you say, when you said that, I felt hurt. So you're taking responsibility for your emotion in that moment. So you're discussing the toxicity, that I felt hurt. I understand that I did. You didn't mean to do it. So that's taking half the toxicity out and opening up to conversation. So that can be fixed.
Okay, so we can balance unconditional love and possible toxicity.
Yes,
Okay.
just because that is a concept does not mean that is a fact necessarily. Yes, I apologize, Saad. Your turn.
No, sorry. Yeah. I was also like, this is what we're premising this upon, right, Amna? We're saying being disloyal to even the idea of that love is ideal, or that you have to be entirely unconditional to a point of being self-effacing or self-sacrificing. Boundaries set. It's important, again, I sense that the boundaries you set for yourself, you don't let them extend, because no matter how healthy or how nice the person that you're with, there are times when there's a tug of war happening. So you need to know where your own boundaries are, कि जहाँ पे your own non-negotiables come on the table as well. That no, I'm feeling this and I need to address this. And उस वक्त I think कितनी reciprocity है of the other person, I think it becomes very defining in a relationship. Because again, there isn't anything ideal. There might be ideal moments along the way where you haven't fought for days and you're like, wow, that's brilliant. But somewhere I think we will all have like a thick and thin, and at times thin is too thin, and you need to let the other person know that you can't stretch more than that. And maybe it's time for them to realize, or for you to also realize, that this is because the more leverage given, the more perhaps to be taken. So we all are humans, end of the day, trying to navigate this world. So it's important to know that when to rein in that moment or emotion.
I think that's always very tricky, balancing unconditional love, but people also have to understand कि unconditional love भी subjective है. What do you mean by unconditional love? Unconditional love का मतलब ये नहीं है कि कोई आपके साथ ज्यादती भी कर, abusive भी हो रहा, you're bound to love that person. क्योंकि जो हमारी सोसाइटी में नैरेटिव बिल्ड किया जाता है कि अच्छा नहीं, क्योंकि वो कोई बात नहीं, रिश्ता चलाना है. So I think मेरा जो जहाँ तक perspective है, I don't know both if you agree to that, कि unconditional love को भी थोड़ा सा context में डालना जरूरी है कि क्या चीजें हैं, क्या पैरामीटर्स हैं जिसको हम लव के जाविये में लेकर आ रहे हैं, जुमरे में लेकर आ रहे हैं, और उसकी बेसिस पे फिर हम उसको वो करें. We have one more question, Sharmeen. I know कि हम आपका काफी टाइम ले रहे हैं, and Saad, I apologize, but एक last question हमारे पास यहाँ पे है कि somebody asked if you guys can give some advice related to self-worth, like realizing your self-worth while you decide to leave a relationship, or even if you are in a relationship. So self-worth को कैसे हम लोग जो है मजीद enhance कर सकते हैं, even while we leaving the relationship or while we're in the relationship? That's the last question we'll be taking for today.
Saad, you or me?
You go ahead, just fire away.
Okay, so self-worth is a very personal concept. And it is how we feel about ourselves, which is self-explanatory in the term itself. So if we put our power in the hands of our partner and allow our partner to decide our self-worth, that is unhealthy. and that has the potential to become toxic. Because then when that partner does not respond in the way that we expect, throwing that word in as well, since it was in the previous comment. So if they don't act in a way that we expect, what happens is that we respond to that as well, and we feel that you don't love me, or maybe mere andar kuch kami hai, which is why you're acting in that way. So जैसे लड़ाइयाँ भी होती हैं relationship में, and मैं एक मिसाल देती हूँ कि there's certain days, just like our relationship with God, right? कुछ दिन होते हैं जैसे कि रमजान के हम सारी रात तहज्जुद भी पढ़ रहे हैं, सब कुछ कर रहे हैं, and कुछ दिन होते हैं कि 6 महीने गुजर जाते हैं, एक नमाज नहीं पढ़ते, right? And that's okay. I mean, I'm not a cleric and I'm not giving any fatwas here, but I'm just gonna say it's okay, because it doesn't mean that you don't love God. It's just that you're going through a moment in your life. And the same way, if you wake up one morning and you just want space from your partner for that one day, that doesn't mean it's a bad thing. That doesn't mean that you guys are over each other, or that doesn't mean that you've gained too much weight or lost too much weight or become too old, too young. It just means also about nurturing the relationship with yourself. And not losing yourself in that one relationship with your partner.
I think it's important, and yet again, I think that's something कि जो हम लोगों ने भी कुछ चीजें unlearn की हैं, learn की हैं. I think कि the idea of validation also comes into play. कि it's fine कि क्योंकि validation मेरे लिहाज से हम completely eliminate नहीं कर सकते. But you also have to see कि अच्छा healthy validation कहाँ से आ रही है. If, for example, your idea of being intelligent is entirely dependent on how your partner is making you feel, then it's going to be, it's an easy hit on your self-worth. But if you know कि like I'm intelligent but मेरी limitations हैं, your validation is not solely dependent on your partner. So I think उसमें अपनी self-worth को थोड़ा सा पहले explore करना, and I know it's not easy अपना confidence build करना and being very confident about yourself even in the absence of validation. But मेरा ख्याल है कि the idea goes back to seeking validation and being very aware कि आप जो भी responses कर रहे, seek out कर रहे हो, किस वजह से कर रहे, उसका premise क्या है. Saad, would you like to add on something to it? Because we're running short of time, and
I think all that I'd add into that is because, like I again loved what Sharmeen mentioned earlier as well. It's subjective experience, and when it's a subjective experience, आप खुद जब relationship में हो तो आप realize कर रहे as you go along. I think I'll give an example of the times we live in right now, right? Where we're quarantined, but the policies are quite different to how we're living. The policies are far more lackluster, they're laid back. People are being allowed to go out, but then we're all telling each other that you need to be now responsible. If the quarantine is lifted, you can't just go out, step and start partying with friends because the virus still exists out there and you need to be careful. So there has to be protection, there has to be social distancing. I feel it's very similar कि जब आप relationship में भी होते हो, that you need to understand your own protection and you need to realize that the policies of a relationship might not be. And I think the question was very well articulated when they said even while being in a relationship, you might not be in one. So to be aware of that is very important. And the responsibility, again, just like today, in COVID times, the responsibility lies on our own selves to manage our health. Similarly, I think relationship may be the sole responsibility. End of the day, people can help you, people can facilitate you, but the responsibility to understand your relationship and see if it's working for you or not is going to be on you, and you choose to decide if it's not working out or if it's working out.
And I like the interesting way that you curated that answer. And on that note, I don't think so we have any further questions. We have a lot of comments which we can review afterwards. But Sharmeen, thank you so much for taking out time. I know you have a very busy schedule.
Thank you.
Have clients to see, but thank you so much for that enlightened discussion. And Saad, thank you so much for your wonderful responses and your analogies. I personally learned a lot from today's session, and I think in my society where there are no schools about learning how to be in a relationship, I feel that these kind of conversations are very valuable to help people navigate their daily lives. Once again, thank you so much, both of you, and we might engage you for some other session. And I think एक मेरे ज़हन में भी जाते जाते एक point आया है कि uncoupling के ऊपर भी how do you transition from a relationship that has ended? Maybe perhaps some other day we can talk about that as well. So thank you so much. It was lovely
Thank
having
you. Yes. Yes. And thank you, Sharmeen. You know, you're allowing, it's been such a lead back, such a drawing room conversation that we've been able to have. So thank you for like allowing that to happen.
Oh, thank you for just saying half of what I wanted to. So I really like how the conversation was flowing. Thank you for that.
Brilliant. Thank you so much. Thank you.
so much, everyone. Tune in next time. Thank you. Allah Hafiz.
Thanks.
Allah
Bye.
Hafiz.
Thank you.